Day after day, he was forced to watch it. The horrifying accident that shattered his family. His mind and body were pushed to the absolute breaking point. He only endured it for one reason: the promise of returning home, returning to his beloved family after the tragedy. Suddenly, he materialized in an unknown space. A system message chimed in. Challenge completed. 10 grueling years had passed. His mortal body could not take it anymore. He collapsed to the ground. Right at that moment, a blinding system window appeared. Congratulations, you have cleared the tutorial. Tears of pure joy streamed down his face. He could finally see his parents. He could hug his little sister. But it was all a cruel lie. He opened his eyes to the brutal world of Muram, a realm where the strong devour the weak. Here, justice meant absolutely nothing. Only power and background mattered. Cha Xin-heon was furious. He suffered 10 years of hellish torture just to be dumped in this wasteland. Suddenly, the thug demanded his life. Was this trash actually courting death? Xin-heon slaughtered him without hesitation. Ding! Another system message flashed. Your external martial arts have leveled up. The moment he saw those words, his gamer instincts kicked in. The path forward became crystal clear. By circulating the heavenly martial arts technique, he would completely conquer this world. It was the only way back to Earth. Time flowed relentlessly. He ascended to the absolute pinnacle. He became the supreme sword emperor, the literal god of death in Muram. Xin-heon had slaughtered countless demonic cultists. If they breathed, he sent them to the afterlife. He annihilated them so thoroughly that he was forcefully crowned the new demonic cult leader. Why? Because he had wiped out everyone else, and he did it all just to pass the time. 140 years had passed since he arrived in this hellhole. Xin-heon was bored out of his mind. But then, the golden system window returned. External and internal martial arts have reached maximum level. Congratulations. You have achieved the absolute apex. The divine limits have been shattered. You are now returning to Earth. Hearing this, Xin-heon erupted into maniacal laughter. The day had finally come. He swore a blood oath. Whoever created this twisted system would pay the ultimate price. I do not care if you are a god. You cannot escape me. He was finally going home. Let us rewind to Earth in 2011. Right before Xin-heon's tragic accident, an almighty goddess descended. She granted humanity awakened abilities to fight back against the apocalypse. Endless monsters poured from terrifying dungeons. Fast forward to 2025. Inside Korea's Red Wolf dungeon, his little sister, Cha Eun-seo, was fighting a desperate battle for survival. The situation was catastrophic. The Red Wolves were endlessly swarming. Her party members were dropping dead. They were pushed to the brink of annihilation. All because of one cowardly piece of trash. Seo Jong-hin had abandoned his team. Eun-seo was the last one standing. She screamed a desperate warning at the fleeing traitor. It does not matter how powerful your father is. You will never get away with this. Hearing her threat, the coward stopped. He charged back and launched a sneak attack. Eun-seo's fragile body was blasted away. She crashed violently against a massive tree, paralyzed and defenseless. Jong-hin rushed in to silence her forever. But then, a deafening thunderclap ripped through the sky. Boom! The earth shattered. Emerging from the dust was Cha Xin-heon. He threw his head back and laughed crazily. Ha ha ha! I have finally returned. The cowardly trash stared at him. He thought Xin-heon was an escaped mental patient. Who the hell are you? State your identity. But Xin-heon completely ignored the barking dog. He slowly walked toward Eun-seo. Jong-hin started panicking. If this weirdo reported his betrayal, his life as a hunter was over. He prepared to launch a lethal strike. Meanwhile, Xin-heon recognized his precious little sister by the childhood necklace. The trash dared to attack him. Xin-heon did not even draw a weapon. He merely released a fraction of his aura. The shockwave blasted the coward backward. An apocalyptic energy erupted from the Sword Emperor. The very ground pulverized beneath his feet. Jong-hin was paralyzed with pure terror. How could a human possess such monstrous power? Xin-heon stared down at the trembling bug. He calmly revealed his true identity. I am the Supreme Sword Emperor, Cha Xin Hian, but dead men do not need to remember names. Without a second glance, he flicked a single finger. Absolute devastation followed. The coward was instantly vaporized. Even the massive mountain behind him was completely obliterated. Shortly after, 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆�𝒕 slowly opened her eyes. Her fatal wounds were completely healed. She stared at the man before her. She had no idea this was her long-lost brother. Time and martial arts had completely transformed him. He had to recount their deepest childhood secrets just to prove his identity. Only then did the truth sink in. Her beloved brother, missing for 14 years, had actually returned from the dead. That precious necklace she always wore, it was the very birthday gift he had given her. 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆�𝒕 burst into uncontrollable tears. The siblings shared a heart-wrenching embrace. After their parents perished in the crash, she had fought tooth and nail, just to survive in this apocalyptic world. Suddenly, she spotted Zhang Hin's obliterated remains. Panic washed over her face. She grabbed her brother to flee. His father is Chairman Kang Jin. He will definitely hunt us down. The chairman was a legendary tyrant, a former ruthless mafia boss, and one of the top 11 highest-ranking hunters in all of South Korea. But Xin Hian just smirked. His confidence was absolute. Relax, little sister. I will handle this. I will just wipe that old man out of existence. After all, your brother is the Supreme Sword Emperor. 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𒔝� immediately pinched his cheek hard. Wake up from your delusions, she scolded him. He did not become a chairman by pure luck. And what the heck is a Supreme Sword Emperor? That sounds unbelievably cringe. Gone for 14 years, and he comes back with 8th grade syndrome? Sighing, Xin Hian explained his brutal survival in Muram, a world of martial arts. But to her, it sounded like total fantasy. She explained hunters and dungeons to him instead. But there was no time to waste. They needed to report the incident to the Dawn Guild immediately. After his sister safely left, Xin Hian's eyes turned cold. He was planning to hunt down Kang Jin. But right at that moment, the front door exploded into splinters. A gang of elite hunters stormed in. Leading them was none other than Seo Kang Jin himself. Well, this saved him the trouble of hunting them. Xin Hian crossed his arms and mocked them. Are your eyes blind and your hands broken? Could you not see the doorbell right there? Or did your mothers never teach you basic manners to knock? Kang Jin had no time for this cosplayer. In this modern era of hunters, who still wears ancient martial arts robes? He only cared about finding 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕, but Xin Hian dropped the ultimate bombshell. I slaughtered your pathetic son. The chairman's face contorted in demonic rage. Veins bulged violently on his forehead. A suffocating, bloodthirsty aura exploded from his body. Xin Hian smirked. Let us see what these so-called high-rankers can do. The chairman charged like a rabid beast. He swung his massive blade down with deadly force, but Xin Hian simply raised a hand. Brilliant blue lightning coated his palm. Boom! A devastating shockwave shattered the room. He caught the lethal blade with his bare hands. The chairman's eyes widened in absolute shock. The backlash sent the chairman skidding backward. Is this kid a monster? The elite henchmen rushed in to back him up, but their attacks were pitiful. A high-tier mage hurled a massive fireball. It fizzled out before even scratching him. A dual-blade assassin closed the distance. Crack! Xin Hian shattered his twin swords with a single squeeze. A burst of majestic blue aura sent the trash flying. Xin Hian finally understood the power scaling of this world. Humanity had evolved rapidly. Countless supreme masters were born in just 14 short years. But against him, they were absolute garbage. He had slaughtered the top 10 masters of Murim all by himself. These small fry were not even worth his time. Oh? An ice mage? Shin Hyun found this mildly amusing. You dare show off magic before me? With a casual flick of his wrist, he summoned a terrifying swarm of colossal ice dragons. In a single heartbeat, the mage was frozen solid. Another thug tried to run for his life, but escape? Impossible. The Supreme Sword Emperor had already sealed the entire dimension. Old man Seo Kang-jin trembled in absolute terror. An ice wall? Did this kid just cast high-tier magic with a mere flick of his finger? Could he actually be a mage? But that was completely impossible. No ordinary spellcaster could block my ultimate strike, let alone protect this entire house from such a devastating impact. You think this is just a simple barrier? The protagonist smirked. I have enveloped this entire domain with my heart sword. Step foot in my territory, and your life belongs to me. The old man's eyes went bloodshot. A dense crimson aura erupted from his body. It was the berserker's fury. His combat power skyrocketed to monstrous levels in an instant. He launched a storm of frantic attacks at our protagonist, but it was utterly useless. The skill had completely devoured his sanity, leaving behind nothing but a mindless beast thirsting for blood. To end this pathetic display, our hero delivered a single, devastating slash. Consider it an absolute honor, he whispered, to meet your end by the blade of the Supreme Sword Emperor. When his little sister finally returned, she completely lost it. Where the heck is our front door? She aggressively scolded her brother, who was casually mopping up fresh blood from their living room floor. But she was not alone. A breathtakingly beautiful woman stood right beside her. The protagonist instantly recognized her overwhelming aura. His heavenly martial arts energy was naturally resonating with hers. She was undeniably a master from the Murim world. Meet Lee Ji-hae, the vice master of the Dawn Guild, and one of the top 4 absolute strongest hunters in all of South Korea. She had already covered up the old man's messy execution. It turned out, exactly 3 individuals had returned from the martial realm. Aside from the 2 of them, there was Park Tae-hyun, the absolute ruler of the Northern Guild. The Dawn Guild held massive influence over the Korean Hunter Association, but our swordmaster was genuinely puzzled. How did those 2 manage to return to Earth so incredibly fast? The truth hit him like a ton of bricks. They literally just died and respawned back home. Meanwhile, our overpowered hero had to grind his soul away for 140 agonizing years just to make it back. He cut straight to the chase. What is your goal here? Sure, I am insanely handsome, but I am flying solo right now. Ignoring his joke, she laid out the Dawn Guild's critical situation. They were locked in a brutal, all-out war with the Twilight Guild. The power struggle was terrifyingly fierce, and the fallout was unpredictable. But now that Chairman Seo Kang-jin had been eliminated, you single-handedly wiped out our core forces and their leader, she stated coldly. You need to take full responsibility for this mess. Her demand was absolute. He had to join her guild immediately. But our Supreme Emperor flat-out rejected her. He was a lone wolf who dominated the battlefield by himself. Why would a dragon bow down to insects? Serving under someone weaker solved absolutely nothing. Refusing to be looked down upon, Ji-hae immediately challenged him to a duel. She unleashed a terrifying spatial sphere. In the blink of an eye, both of them vanished completely from the mortal realm. They had entered her exclusive domain, the unique skill, Shadow Dance. The protagonist's senses were instantly sealed in absolute darkness, a deadly trap with a 50-meter radius of pure nightmare. This is a sealed dimension mirroring reality, her voice echoed from the void. Back in Murim, they called me the blood-drenched plum blossom, and my assassination record? 100% flawless. There were only two ways out of this hell. Break her, or die trying. With lightning speed, she lunged from the shadows, her lethal blades aimed right at his vital spots. But her strike hit nothing but empty air. The overpowered hero casually caught her legendary dagger with his bare hands. As panic flashed across her eyes, he instantly recognized her lethal footwork. "The Dark Sovereign's lunar blood trail," he chuckled. "The supreme assassination art of the martial world. Since you are my junior, I will generously grant you exactly 3 strikes. Land even one hit, and I will join your little guild." Provoked, Jihei melted back into the shadows. The air shattered as countless crimson arrows rained down, threatening to impale our hero where he stood. Yet, with a mere wave of his hand, the deadly barrage was effortlessly obliterated. Desperate, she executed her fastest shadow strike, only to be blocked again like a child playing with toys. She had one final chance. Pushed to her absolute limit, she unleashed her ultimate killing move, the Shadow Execution. An overwhelming swarm of abyssal daggers filled the void, completely swallowing the protagonist in a storm of blades. But the Supreme Swordmaster simply tore reality apart. The massive shockwave sent a giant boulder crashing right toward her frozen body. With a devastating punch, he shattered the rock to dust, saving the damsel in distress. The duel was overwhelmingly one-sided. She was left utterly speechless. What kind of monstrous training did this guy go through? If he had actually fought back, she would have been erased from existence. In the end, he agreed to an alliance, strictly to protect his little sister. "Here are my absolute terms," he commanded. "Your guild provides top-tier items and intelligence. In exchange, I will lend you my overwhelming power as a freelancer." The protagonist also gave his absolute word. Under no circumstances would he ever ally with the Twilight Guild. His loyalty to this pact was carved in stone. "I swear this on my honor as the Supreme Sword Emperor." What a terribly cheesy title. Upon returning home, his little sister threw her arms around him, terrified that her beloved brother might vanish into thin air once again. Then, she dropped a massive bomb. She wanted to become an awakened hunter. Was this girl completely out of her mind? Pushing that aside, the hero pulled out the supreme status cube he got from Jihei. This artifact was supposed to reveal his awakened stats, but the moment his overwhelming aura touched it, the supreme cube glowed intensely before shattering into dust. "Did that cheapskate give him a counterfeit item? You absolute boomer," his sister sighed, manually summoning his system window for him. But the result was tragically hilarious. His stats were utterly pathetic. Forget his glorious martial status. His sister instantly went into savage mode. "Look at you, acting all high and mighty with those trash stats. You might as well just stay home, become a house husband, and marry some rich girl." In this world, there were 6 fundamental combat classes. Some even evolved into advanced tiers, like a basic archer transforming into a deadly sniper. But our mighty hero, he did not even have a starting class. Put simply, if you took away his legendary martial arts, he was nothing but a fragile mortal. To make matters worse, classless hunters had to buy skill cubes to learn abilities, and the cheapest one cost a staggering 20 million won. What an absolute scam. Our overpowered hero was currently broke as a joke, but then, a brilliant idea crossed his mind. He had a super-rich Vice Guild master backing him up now. Money was definitely. The very next day, the dynamic sibling duo stepped into a low-tier dungeon. Time to hunt some magical beasts. Defeating these monsters dropped precious lunar stones. Sell those bad boys, and you were swimming in endless cash. These glowing rocks were packed with incredibly pure mana, making them the ultimate currency for aspiring hunters looking to strike it rich. "Listen closely, big brother," she warned seriously. "These monsters are absolutely no joke." But when she turned her head, her jaw dropped to the floor. Our fake weak protagonist had already wiped out an entire horde without breaking a sweat. There was just one massive problem. Because he used his martial arts, the system gave him exactly 0 experience points. If he wanted to level up, he had to exclusively use the basic sword skill he secured from the guildmaster. The swordmaster went completely silent. Then, he dragged his screaming sister right into the absolute danger zone. 337 bloodthirsty monsters surrounded them. Was her lunatic brother trying to get them killed? "This is literal suicide for rookies," she shrieked in terror. But our fearless hero simply smirked and dove straight into the abyss. Red warning messages flooded his system interface like crazy. With a single, godlike slash, he cleaved a massive beast cleanly in half. In a fraction of a second, he seamlessly fused his pathetic system skill with his supreme martial arts, utterly annihilating the entire. The system practically broke as it announced, "Basic sword mastery has reached rank A+." His little sister stood frozen in absolute shock. The impossible massacre was completely over in the blink of an eye. The moment his heavenly eyes reached A rank, the system chimed in. He had unlocked the origin skill, granting him the power to farm experience points. 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕 finally realized just how monstrously overpowered her older brother truly was. Refusing to be a deadweight, she begged him to teach her the ways of martial arts. Our main character naturally agreed to her request. After all, he could not shadow her every step forever. She needed the strength to forge her own destiny. Meanwhile, our overpowered hero realized a game-changing truth, fusing his ancient martial arts aura with modern system skills. Created a completely broken synergy. The path he chose to integrate was magic. Boom! With a single, earth-shattering blast, the monster horde was incinerated to ash. In that moment, he decided to walk the path of a combat mage. Analyzing the interface, the absolute difference between the two systems became clear. They were forged by entirely different entities. If a benevolent deity gifted humanity the hunter system, then the one who cursed him with the martial arts system was undoubtedly the heavenly war god. Thanks to Guildmaster Li's backing, his hunter rank skyrocketed to level 22. As for his sister, 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕 began mastering the flow of the 365 internal meridians. She was learning to channel true ki. Honestly, she had long passed the golden age for martial awakening, but for a supreme swordmaster like him, there was. He forcibly shattered and reconstructed her mortal vessels, violently purging the impurities from her core. Her agonizing screams echoed through the halls that entire day. Later, Guildmaster Li summoned our siblings and boldly asked our stoic hero out on a date. But a supreme returner knows nothing of earthly romance, leaving him utterly baffled. Meanwhile, a terrifying crisis emerged. A brand new dungeon had ruptured. Right in the heart of 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕. It was a catastrophic level 10 hazard zone. The entry requirement demanded hunters between levels 45 and 50. Clearing this nightmare required assembling an elite strike force of high-ranking awakeners to properly suppress the escalating high-tier dungeon outbreak. The conversation then shifted to the upcoming Sun Festival. It was an annual spectacle co-hosted by the rivaling Twilight and Dawn guilds. On paper, it was a friendly tournament to claim South Korea's ultimate training grounds. To the public eye, it appeared as a beautiful display of harmony and peace between the two dominant factions. But the brutal reality? It was a calculated Cold War to gauge enemy combat power and plan the perfect moment for total annihilation. Recently, the Twilight Guildmaster, Park Tae-hoon, had descended into a power-hungry madness. He was fiercely preaching insane fanaticism about submitting to the heavenly war god. This revelation sent a chill down Jihae's spine. She could not comprehend how her once trusted comrade had become so violently corrupted. After the tragic fall of Chairman Seo and the devastating loss of their elite vanguards, the Dawn Guild's foundation had crumbled, leaving Jihae to carry the entire empire alone. To avoid drawing the furious gaze of the International Hunter Association, our hero agreed. to strictly use hunter abilities during the Sun Festival. In return, 𝒕𝒓𝒂𝒏 delivered a mountain of top-tier magic skill books he had requested. Of course, in this world, absolute power comes with a price. He was forced to sign a mountain of binding contracts. Soon after, the duo breached the perimeter of the Bucheon dungeon. Upon entering, the sky was completely blacked out by a terrifying swarm of draconic beasts. Their numbers seemed absolutely infinite. Expanding his divine senses, he casually estimated about 3,000 targets. But to a returning swordmaster, they were nothing but free experience points. Haha, with a flick, instantly vaporized a massive wave of monsters. 𝒕𝒓𝒂𝒏 watched in absolute horror and awe. He had only glanced at that magic tome a few hours ago. How could he unleash such apocalyptic firepower would surely drain his mana reserves dry in seconds? Nonsense. The word limitation did not exist for him. He was the infinite mage, Cha Shin Hyuk. Hidden among the supreme skills she had provided was the forbidden art of life reversal, a desperate technique designed to sacrifice life force for magical energy. However, having reached the pinnacle of martial arts, his life force was already a boundless ocean. Therefore, his mana pool was practically infinite. Suddenly, the ground trembled as a colossal ancient dragon descended before them. This defied all logic. By the absolute laws of the system, a dungeon could only spawn one singular monster type. There were 0 recorded exceptions in history. Worse, this beast possessed high-tier magic, launching a lethal spell directly at 𝒕𝒓𝒂𝒏. Thankfully, our overpowered main character moved like a phantom. The truth was, his heavenly senses had detected the boss from the very beginning. He was merely waiting for the perfect moment to harvest its juicy experience points. Crackle! Golden lightning erupted from his hand. He was primed for absolute slaughter. Suddenly, massive aberrations began pouring out from distorted spatial rifts. Yet, our hero remained hovering in midair, standing perfectly still like a silent god, assuming he was vulnerable. 𝒕𝒓𝒂𝒏 desperately fought to intercept the flanking monstrosities. The giant beasts began assembling into an impregnable battle formation. A terrifying wall of lesser monsters formed a living meat shield around the titans. In all her years as a top ranker, she had never witnessed such terrifying tactical coordination from mere beasts. No matter how godlike his power was, this situation screamed fatal danger. She bit her lip. She had to protect him at all costs. But he was levitating high above the battlefield, completely out of her reach. The monster vanguard locked their bloodthirsty gaze entirely on him. Seizing the distraction, 𝒕𝒓𝒂𝒏 vanished into the darkness. Executing her ult, she carved through their ranks. But the horde was an endless, suffocating ocean. Just as despair crept in, the very atmosphere shattered. An unimaginable storm of divine sword aura erupted from his absolute. Ethereal blades of pure, condensed energy manifested in the space around him. With a single, indifferent point of his finger, an apocalyptic barrage of glowing swords rained down, eradicating every living nightmare was a beautiful, torrential rain of precious bloodstones. What kind of unfathomable, world-ending power was this? Amidst the glorious loot, his eyes locked onto a brilliant sapphire gem. It was not a mere blood dropped by the anomaly boss. This artifact was a treasure beyond mortal comprehension. 1 month later, the grand stage of the Sun Festival was finally drawing near. Our main character had achieved explosive overnight fame. He was insanely handsome and naturally edgy. It was because he dared to enter the ultimate tournament with only 1 month of hunter experience. Rumors spread like wildfire. The masses whispered that he was the Dawn Guild's ultimate, hidden weapon. Meanwhile, deep within the shadows of the Twilight Guild's headquarters, the intelligence division was getting absolutely decimated by their superiors. Despite utilizing all their dark web resources, they could not dig up a single shred of background information. On this mysterious newcomer, only Guildmaster Park Tae-hoon sat in absolute, chilling silence. A sinister smirk crossed his face. He was dead certain this anomaly was another returner from the martial arts realm, just like to offer our hero a highly lucrative, backdoor partnership with the Twilight Guild. Obviously, our fiercely loyal protagonist instantly rejected the trash offer. He never goes back on a promise made to his allies. Hidden in the shadows, Tae-hoon observed the entire exchange with venomous eyes. Enraged by the failure, he violently grabbed his subordinate by the collar. The lack of intelligence on this overpowered freak was driving him to the brink of insanity. Our stoic hero and his little sister stood quietly before their parents' graves. The heavy atmosphere made him feel deeply uncomfortable. having survived thousands of years of endless bloodshed in the Murim world. His soul he could not shed a single tear, even in front of his family's resting place. 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆🔥 sharply sensed this chilling emotional void. The warm, loving brother she once knew had been replaced by a god of war with a heart of ice. Truly still her beloved brother? At that exact moment, the crimson interface of the martial arts system forcefully hijacked his vision. A terrifying, divine voice echoed in his mind. Why do you still cling to that fragile human shell? Cease your pathetic resistance. I shall descend and strip away everything you own once again. It was him, the absolute nemesis of his past life, violently erupted from our hero's body. He didn't care who or what this god was. Just drop the coordinates, and he would butcher him. Several days later, the highly anticipated Sun Festival finally kicked off. Broadcasted live, millions of screaming fans watched the ultimate clash of titans. The explosive hype rivaled that of the World Cup. Amidst the deafening cheers, Jihei noticed 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒎𝒂𝒏, still visibly upset from the ordered Jihei to purchase an isolated, fortified stronghold far from civilization. His expression turned deadly serious as he delivered the chilling truth. My martial arts status window sent a divine warning. The heavenly war god is hunting me. If I keep 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒎𝒂𝒏, close, she will only be in more danger. But his stubborn sister declared she had survived perfectly fine without him all these years. Suddenly, a fist flew toward Hyeon's face. Meanwhile, up in the VIP stands, the tension was absolutely suffocating. The leaders of the top two guilds glared at each other, their killing intent clashing in the very air, and 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒎𝒂𝒏 stormed into the waiting room to confront her brother. Her temper flared like a wildfire, even snapping at the Vice Guild Master for sticking her nose where it didn't belong. The Vice Guild Master merely sighed. She knew the dark truth. 14 years trapped in the brutal world of Murim, a hellscape where a single moment of distraction meant absolute death. The cold, emotionless mask Hyeon wore was a cage holding back his bloodthirsty nature. The archery tournament finally kicked off. 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒎𝒂𝒏 stepped up to the line as the team captain. Fusing her hunter skills with ancient martial arts, she unleashed a devastating strike. After her parents' tragic deaths and her brother's disappearance, she was left entirely alone in this cruel world. Raised in a state-run orphanage, she clawed her way through the Hunter Academy. No matter how mercilessly she was bullied, she fought back with an unbreakable will. Yet, to Hyeon's battle-hardened eyes, she was still just a fragile little girl. Suddenly, an ambush. An arrow grazed her out of nowhere. The enemy wasn't playing games. They were using live, lethal ammunition. Worse, the security cameras were completely jammed. They were totally isolated. No one was coming to save her. But 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒎𝒂𝒏 didn't panic. She yanked the arrow out without blinking. Her eyes turned terrifyingly cold, glaring at the assassins like a true reaper of death. A massive barrage of arrows rained down on her, but they couldn't even scratch her. She retaliated, sweeping through the grunts with terrifying precision. However, her brother's voice echoed in her mind, guiding her martial arts. With a single explosive punch, she sent a coalition sniper flying into next week. Reinforcements arrived, and her team secured the victory. Surviving the ambush completely erased her anger toward her brother, but little did they know, Park Tae-ron had watched the entire bloodbath. He saw the truth behind her movements. Those weren't just skills. That was authentic Murim martial arts. It confirmed his ultimate suspicion, Hyeon's 14-year disappearance. He had actually returned from the martial arts world. Meanwhile, 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒎𝒂𝒏 was, even though she didn't qualify for the finals, she was beaming. Hyeon finally dropped his impenetrable walls. He apologized for keeping her in the dark. His true goal was revenge, to hunt down the bastards who by reaching the absolute apex as a top-tier hunter, he would uncover the bloody truth. He had kept his distance to protect her from this vicious underworld. Hearing this, 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒎𝒂𝒏's heart finally softened. She confessed her true feelings. His constant secrets made her feel entirely abandoned and completely alone. She just wanted them to face the world together. She demanded absolute honesty from now on. So, Hyeon casually dropped a massive bomb. He revealed his past life's title, the Ultimate Sword Emperor. 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒎𝒂𝒏, convinced her brother had a severe case of 8th grader syndrome. Back to the arena. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. Thank you for waiting, ladies and gentlemen. The main event of the Sun Festival is here. The legendary clash between dawn and twilight begins now. Introducing the super rookie who's breaking the internet. The man who shook hands with Vice Guildmaster Li Jin. Haiyan. His class? Unknown. His level? A total mystery. He is the ultimate wildcard in this psychological warfare. His opponent stepped into the ring. The genius mage of the Twilight Guild. The Fire Dragon King. Ryu. The bell rang, and the duel of the century began. Ryu instantly took to the skies, raining down fiery devastation to keep his distance. Haiyan just analyzed his opponent. Level 50. Not bad. But times have changed. I will crush him using only my hunter skills. After all, his current system level was already 53. Up in the stands, Guildmaster Park watched like a hawk. He was desperate to gauge the true depths of Haiyan's power. All right, Haiyan smirked. Let's give the old man a show. He unleashed a massive barrage of azure energy. Ryu blocked the blast and charged in for close combat, but his attacks couldn't even leave a scratch on Haiyan. Ryu's pride was utterly shattered. Furious, he activated his signature move. Fire Dragon Strike. A massive, blazing dragon materialized. It roared, diving toward Haiyan at lightning speed. But the overpowered main character didn't even flinch. He simply raised his hand and gave it a massive thumbs down. Boom. The fiery beast was instantly obliterated into sparks. Ryu's jaw dropped to the floor. What the hell kind of trash skill is that? The entire stadium went dead silent in pure shock. What they didn't know was that Haiyan used a crushing, invisible force. High-tier martial arts, perfectly disguised as magic. Driven absolutely insane by the humiliation, Ryu recklessly charged forward. But every single strike was effortlessly parried. Haiyan casually tripped him, sending the genius mage eating dirt. For a guy who fights at close range. Your technique is absolute garbage. Ryu completely snapped. Coughing up blood from sheer rage, his entire body was engulfed in blinding flames. He summoned an army of fire dragons. 10-step Fire Dragon Strike. The immense heat, the shockwave violently rattled the arena. But when the smoke cleared, Haiyan's defensive barrier didn't even have a crack. Once again, he used his infamous thumbs-down technique, completely obliterating the ultimate attack. Do not try this at home, folks. Haiyan had weaponized pure gravity to crush the flames. The crowd was losing their minds. This is impossible. Since when can a human control gravity? Playtime is over, Haiyan declared. With one devastating blow, the genius mage was knocked out cold. The next challenger stepped into the blood-stained arena. The mighty knight Choi. Known as the Spear of Twilight, and feared as the Witch Butcher, he held an undefeated streak against magic users. Even though warriors naturally had an advantage against mages. The crowd was buzzing. Could this knight survive Haiyan's mysterious magic? The signal blared, and round 2 commenced. Choi instantly cast a high-tier magic resistance buff. He exploded forward like an unstoppable cannonball. Haiyan fired a blast of azure energy, but Choi didn't even flinch. The guy had built himself into a pure anti-magic tank. His speed was entirely unreasonable. Even Haiyan was slightly caught off guard. A fully tanky juggernaut build? Now that was just annoying. Haiyan launched himself into the air, but Choi's relentless assault followed him. A heavy strike shattered Haiyan's magic barrier, sending our overpowered protagonist crashing into the arena floor. It had been a very long time since anyone had actually managed to knock him down. All right, I will take you a little seriously. A terrifying, crushing gravity descended upon the stage, but unbelievably, the knight forced his way through it. Just as Choi closed the distance, Haiyan casually swiped his hand through the air. A monstrous, invisible force slammed into the knight, instantly burying. The anti-magic tank had been completely pulverized in one hit. This wasn't just gravity. It was the ultimate martial arts mastery of yin and yang, a godly push-and-pull technique he created through endless meditation. But suddenly, the knight forced himself back up. He triggered his hidden trump card at point-blank range, a skill impossible to dodge. A terrifying system warning flashed before Haeyeon's eyes. Magic usage restricted for 10 seconds. This was the exact skill that earned Choi the title of Witch Butcher. The crowd gasped. They thought the super rookie was finally finished. But they were dead wrong. Haeyeon's eyes darkened, radiating pure, suffocating, killing intent. You think you can kill me? Keep dreaming. An overwhelming, monstrous power erupted from his body. The shockwave violently blew the knight backward. Haeyeon wasn't relying on hunter magic anymore. He unleashed the heavenly martial aura. His energy resonated perfectly with Guildmaster's soul. Countless ethereal chains erupted from the ground, firmly binding the helpless knight. When a martial artist reaches the absolute pinnacle, they awaken the heart sword. This is the legendary realm of the sword sage. It is a human will manifesting in the mortal realm. At this divine stage, a mere thought can sever reality itself. He unleashed a devastating, bone-crushing punch. The knight was instantly obliterated from the arena. Victory belonged to Ji-hyun in the second round. The Great Battle of the Sun Festival had concluded. Cha Shin-yun forfeited her remaining matches, faking mana depletion to hide her true monstrous power. The Twilight Guild suffered a crushing 3-2 defeat. The festival closed its curtains. Twilight was once feared as the absolute strongest, but the hierarchy had shattered. The Soul Guild master barricaded himself in his room. A profound terror consumed his very soul. He had glimpsed the unfathomable abyss of Haeyeon's true strength. He knew facing that monster meant absolute death. Meanwhile, Haeyeon decided to take a much-needed vacation to Jeju Island. He just wanted to escape the annoying reporters and relentless hunters. But the moment he stepped off the plane, the local Tamla Guild swarmed him like a superstar. Captain Kim sprinted forward with stars in his eyes. The man was a massive fanboy, begging for autographs or a piece of his clothing. Haeyeon stared at him, wondering if the guy was a total creep. Meanwhile, Taehoon's dark syndicate was already moving. They laced the island with deadly, unseen traps, waiting for our main character to walk straight into his doom. The Tamla Guild, they lacked the manpower to clear a high-tier dungeon. If left unchecked, the massive mainland guilds would devour their territory. Haeyeon casually agreed, might as well mix some slaughter with his sightseeing. And so began the ultimate carry mission. Surprisingly, his fanboy was a respectable level 40. The man possessed a highly versatile spatial teleportation ability. His solo combat style was ruthlessly efficient. He simply teleported wingless monsters 150 meters into the sky, letting gravity deliver a fatal, bone-shattering splat. His spatial range was limited only by his line of sight. As long as he could see an empty space, he could instantly shift reality to that exact coordinate. Watching this, our genius main character instantly copied the technique. But the execution was somewhat flawed. He ended up embarrassingly tangled in the branches of a massive tree. Mastering spatial laws would clearly take a bit more time. Yet, the fanboy showered him with awestruck praise. Knowing most hunters took years to... Haeyeon's pride swelled just a little bit. His younger sister watched this display, fighting the intense urge to smack her completely overpowered brother. Normal combat was impossible here. So, Haeyeon unleashed the Aura of Majesty, a divine skill extracted from the blue sapphire. It allowed absolute mental domination over lesser beings. Fusing this dominance with his heart sword, his power output multiplied exponentially. He commanded every single beast in the vicinity to bow before him. The earth violently shuddered. An endless tidal wave of monsters aggressively stampeded toward his location. Believing an earthquake had struck, Haeyeon ordered Captain Kim to evacuate. He would face this apocalyptic horde alone. Unseo wanted to stand by his side, but was denied. Finally free from watchful eyes, Haeyeon unleashed his true martial arts. Mountains shattered beneath his overwhelming force. The monster horde was mercilessly pulverized into dust. Seeing 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆�𝒕 trembling form, the orange-haired hunter assumed she was. He rushed over to offer comforting words. Guildmaster Cha is a god among men. You have absolutely nothing to worry about. Just trust in his invincible strength. But 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕's dark expression told a completely different story. She was furiously cursing her idiot brother, realizing he was hoarding every single drop of experience points for himself. It was completely absurd. With his aura of majesty, he could literally gather the entire dungeon, farming experience like an absolute cheat code. Meanwhile, back on the mainland, his partner was agonizing over a catastrophic threat. The Silver Desert Dungeon, a perilous level 15 anomaly. Only elite hunters above level 60 dared to enter. Colossal sandworms, as massive as 10-story buildings, lurked beneath the dunes. They ambushed their prey with terrifying ferocity. Though few in number, each possessed the raw, destructive might of a high-ranking hunter. If Heian were here, he would obliterate them with a single strike. She massaged her aching temples, wishing her overpowered partner would return. Half a month quickly, Heian had spent every day power-leveling the local hunters. His mastery over spatial teleportation was now flawless. His sister had ascended 3 stages, reaching level 38. During this time, he had annihilated countless dungeons across the island. Suddenly, a highly suspicious cavern emerged. Swarming with bat monsters and cloaked in suffocating darkness, the expedition team demanded that Heian enter completely alone. The lethal intent was practically leaking from the shadows. This was an stepping into the abyss. A suffocating dread washed over Heian. The atmosphere mirrored the blood-soaked caves of his past life in Murim. His eyes narrowed as he recognized an ancient martial arts array. It was an array of illusions. While not inherently lethal, it devoured the minds of its victims, trapping them in an inescapable labyrinth of madness. Analyzing the flow of spiritual energy, Heian realized the trap was funneling power toward a specific core. Crushing the dark memories of his past, his killing intent flared against whoever dared to test him. Meanwhile, inside the Silver Desert, the Dawn Guild's elite vanguard battled fiercely against the Beast Horde. Without warning, the Twilight Guild launched a devastating ambush from the shadows. This expedition was supposed to be highly classified. The Dawn Guild's director rushed in to assist, but his loyal mass crumbled. He was a sleeper agent planted by the treacherous 𝒕𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕. The loyal secretary was brutally struck down in seconds. Twilight's assassination squad immediately surrounded the survivors. Years ago, 𝒕𝒐𝒏𝒈 and 𝒕𝒐𝒏𝒈 fought side by side as trusted comrades. But 𝒕𝒐𝒏𝒈's soul was twisted by the cruel laws of He worshipped the law of the jungle, where the strong devour the weak. He committed unspeakable atrocities just to capture 𝒕𝒐𝒏𝒈's gaze. Yet, her heart only bled for the fragile and powerless. Driven by psychotic jealousy, he had slaughtered the weak just to eliminate any distractions. Now, his sinister blade was aimed at the throats of the Dawn Guild. The overwhelming gap in power was absolute despair. Dawn's puppet guildmaster, despite boasting level 60, was completely paralyzed. The assassins began systematically executing members one by one. Fury blazed in the puppet master's eyes, but his weakness bound him in chains of humiliation. 𝒕𝒐𝒑, the absolute strongest vanguard of the guild, was currently in a flash of silver light. 𝒕𝒐𝒑 materialized behind 𝒕𝒐𝒏𝒈, her blade aimed for a fatal strike, but the execution was parried by a shadow. It was Sung Min, the very disciple she had personally trained in the lethal. His technique was razor-sharp, a dark reflection of her own. Now, she was forced to clash with a top 4 national powerhouse, and the sadistic mastermind, 𝒕𝒐𝒏𝒈, was still watching from his throne. Back in the abyss, the trap finally sprang on Heian. The cavern ceiling violently collapsed, burying him in tons of jagged rock. But the dust cleared to reveal him completely unharmed. The treacherous Red Rock Guildmaster refused to confess his master's identity. Heian's patience vanished. He activated his absolute command, forcing the truth from the man's trembling lips. The Red Rock Guild was secretly funded by the Twilight Guild's finances. From the very beginning, their main objective in the Jeju Island Alliance was total control over the Council's decisions. That same day, Galen arrived on the scene. Their mission was simple: lead our main character to the ambush point, He was supposed to clean up the battlefield. But the rat tried to flee. Our overpowered hero merely scoffs. A single casual strike shatters the path ahead, sealing the exit. Now, these traitors are trapped, forced to repent for daring to. Meanwhile, Ji-hye is caught in a deadly dance. She struggles against her opponent's phantom clone technique. But what really angers the enemy is that despite her bleeding wounds, she flat out refuses to use her signature shadow dance. She calls the kid pathetic, tells him to go train for 10 more years. Furious, he unleashes the Blood Moon Dew. The time for hiding his true strength is over. He activates his ultimate technique, the poison spear. She deflects it with her dagger, but this venom is no joke. The corrosive acid melts her blade to the hilt. Even facing this lethal threat, she stubbornly holds back her shadow dance. She needs to save every ounce of aura to defeat Tae-hyun. But in that split second of hesitation, the enemy lunges and lands a devastating stab. Years ago, when he was just a rookie, Ji-hye had beaten him within an inch of his life. Obsessed, he copied her dagger arts. Before walking away back then, she gave him a chilling piece of advice. To become an apex assassin, you must pour your entire soul into the desire to kill a single target. And of course, the target he chose was the very woman who shattered his pride. He grins, thinking he finally surpassed her. But reality hits like a runaway truck. It was just her shadow clone. From the darkness, countless abyssal blades rain down upon him. The most dangerous person on the battlefield is not the mighty warrior. It is the weak fool who hallucinates his own supremacy. And this marks his pathetic end. Now, the main event begins. The clash with Tae-hyun. Both fighters erupt with monstrous auras, trying to crush the other. The shadow dance is finally unleashed. Cut back to our swordmaster. He tries to call her, but gets only static. Before he can think twice, a massive ambush squad materializes from the shadows. Leading them is Galen, a fellow returnee from the brutal Murim world. His hands blur through ancient seals, instantly manifesting a colossal magical array. This is not just magic, it is a deadly matrix trap. He combined the absolute killing formations of Murim with modern sorcerer techniques. He calls it the Heavenly Seal System. Instantly, our hero's body feels like lead. Every movement takes monumental effort. Worse yet, his internal energy is completely jammed. The protective aura around him shatters like glass under their relentless sword pressure. Could it be? Did every single one of these assassins return from the martial realm? Galen sneers with arrogance. Oh Shin-hyeon, it is thrilling to see that dumbstruck look on your face. How does it feel to have your profound internal energy drained away and fed directly to my disciples? Men who wield your martial arts as if they were born with them. It does not matter how ridiculously overpowered you used to be. In this domain, you are nothing. The stronger we become, the closer you creep toward the grave. Because your own legendary power is the very weapon that will execute you. The Heavenly Seal. An absolute spatial dimension forged by aligning elemental objects and mystical talismans into an inescapable geometric matrix. Legend says the supreme tactician, Zhuge Liang, used this exact profound trap to summon heavenly winds and divine light, wiping out entire armies in the blink of an eye. Galen mastered this lethal formation during his blood-soaked days in Murim. Inside this seal, he believes he is a literal god, but unfortunately for him, he is just the god of absolute delusions, because their absolute strikes cannot even graze our hero's clothes. Galen's smug grin instantly turns to pure panic. He has never witnessed such phantom footwork. How in the world is this guy moving so flawlessly within an absolute restriction zone? Our main character just sighs with disappointment. Are you trash really from the demonic cult? Because your sword arts are absolutely pathetic for Murim returnees. I cannot feel even a single drop of true heavenly martial energy from any of you. Since you are just cheap knockoffs, I will erase you from existence without a shred of mercy. Boom! A terrifying, suffocating power explodes from his body. The assassins instantly burst into flames by forcefully absorbing his divine aura. Through their trap, they ignited their own doom. Our overpowered protagonist noticed instantly. The trap was metal elemental, so he casually summoned the fire element to melt it down. Turns out, during his glorious he memorized the heavenly seal as a mere parlor trick when he was bored. And this clown dared to flex it in front of the absolute supreme master? Galen falls to his knees in despair. His entire life's work, just a passing hobby for a true. Talk about soul-crushing despair. His will to fight is completely shattered. Hyun ruthlessly uses a system command to extract every drop of intel from his broken mind. Meanwhile, the brutal duel against Taehyun continues. But Ji-hye is losing ground. This bastard spams a repulsion shield to perfectly negate her most lethal assassinations. Gasping for breath, she glares at him. Why did you slaughter our former comrades? Was it simply because they lacked power? He just smirks. Is it not basic human instinct to trample on the weak? That sickening philosophy makes her blood boil. Driven by pure, blazing fury, she throws herself at him in a suicide assault. But her strikes bounce off completely. Outside the dungeon, the traitorous lookouts suddenly freeze. A seismic rumble shakes the earth. Something incomprehensibly terrifying is approaching. The hair on their necks stands up. A genuine apex predator has arrived. Back inside the boss room, Ji-hye's legendary dagger shatters into dust. Her fragile body is violently slammed into the cratered floor. Her aura reserves hit absolute zero. This filthy dog actually has the nerve to offer her a spot under the heavenly war god. Join us, and we will possess power so absolute, no one but our fierce heroine spits blood in his face. I would rather rot in hell than join hands with absolute scum. She mocks his precious heavenly war god. Once Hyun arrives, your supposed deity will be nothing but a corpse. Taehyun throws his head back and laughs. Shin Hyun is already rotting meat. The absolute elite squad of the Heavenly Guild, led by a legendary Murim returnee, was dispatched specifically to mount his head on a spike. Every single assassin in that unit transcends the realm of high-rank hunters. But while this arrogant dog is busy barking, a chilling shadow looms right behind him. In his hands, our protagonist is casually dragging the lifeless bodies of the elite traitors. Hyun's cold gaze locks onto the battered, bleeding Ji-hye. Instantly, the temperature in the room drops to absolute zero. His eyes glow with apocalyptic fury. Faster than the speed of light, he bridges the gap and throws a devastating punch. The impact detonates like a tactical nuke, but he is not done. He flawlessly transitions into the 18th. A colossal dragon of golden aura roars into existence, blasting toward the bastard at phenomenal speed. This is the legendary, unrivaled secret art of the beggar sect leader. Panicking, but it shatters like cheap glass. The sheer devastation of the strike obliterates him. His entire meridian network crumbles into dust. His mana core is permanently crippled. Just as he hits the ground, Ji-hoo and the rogue knight burst into the cavern. This scheming rat immediately switches to his dirty tactics. He orders them to butcher our hero, to buy him precious seconds to regenerate his shattered core. He screams. After unleashing that, Hyun's mana pool must be completely dry. Rip his head off right now if you want to see tomorrow. Blinded by greed, the two traitors ignite their auras and charge at our supposedly exhausted hero. But buy time? Are you kidding me? In less than half a millisecond, both fools are instantly sent to meet their maker. As absolute terror grips Taehyun's soul, a sinister system prompt echoes in his mind. Suddenly, dark demonic energy floods his broken body. Juiced up on this corrupted system buff, the bastard actually regains his delusional confidence. The system commands him, prove your worth as a disposable pawn, Park Tae-hyun, but our swordmaster's eyes narrow. He instantly realizes this disgusting energy does not belong to the traitor. It is leaking directly from that cursed artifact around his neck. Finally, our overpowered protagonist decides to get mildly serious. He slowly draws his legendary blade, the ultimate barrier shattered like fragile glass. Even his legendary blade was reduced to dust. With a swift motion, he captured her. Absolute command, he whispered. It was time to extract the... Suddenly, countless system chains erupted from the void. They bound him completely without mercy. When his eyes snapped open once again, he was dragged straight back to that cursed Murim cave. But wait, something felt terribly wrong. This wasn't reality. It was a twisted mental dimension created by the mastermind behind Taehyun. You are the first to arrive here, an eerie voice echoed. A genuine pleasure to finally meet you, Cha Shin Hyeon. This is our The entity standing before him was none other than the heavenly war god. Our protagonist glared with pure venom. Did you enjoy the show? Over 40 years of endless blood and agony. And you treated my life like a damn game, you bastard? The so-called god merely sighed. I was exhausted, the deity replied. It felt as though I was slow, but I endured the agonizing wait. I needed to see you reach the absolute pinnacle of strength. The god sneered. You are still human, aren't you? Still clinging desperately to your foolish attachments. To this pathetic world, our hero burst into a dark, echoing laughter. My only lingering attachment is slaughtering the bastard who turned me into this monster. With explosive force, the binding chains shattered into a million pieces. But the cowardly heavenly war god had already slipped away. Meanwhile, the shockwave of Park Tae-hoon's death shook the outside world. The arrogant elites who once backed him, the corrupt executives of his hunter guild, were instantly wiped off the map. The terrified survivors wisely chose to keep their mouths shut. In the bloody aftermath, the Dawn Guild surged forward. They completely devoured the shadow of the fallen Twilight Guild. Searching Tae-hoon's cold corpse yielded a massive clue. A secret contract forged with the mysterious Zero Guild. It was brutally obvious. These were the fanatics who worshipped the heavenly war god. He swore to hunt down every last one of them. But in the shadows, the true mastermind was making a move. Secret orders were issued to stalk our protagonist, observe him from the dark. We will dismantle him piece by piece. It did not matter if his enemies were above rank 5. In this brutal world of hunters, raw power wasn't the only way to claim absolute victory. Cut to Jeju Island. Our overpowered swordmaster was currently getting scolded by his furious little sister. Her barrage of angry slaps was relentless after his sudden disappearance. Meanwhile, he planned to merge the Jeju Alliance with the Dawn Guild. After all, managing the treacherous dungeons of Jeju Island with their limited numbers was a literal suicide mission. They honestly had no other logical choice. To seal the deal, Shin Hyeon made a bold promise. He agreed to personally clear the most lethal, final dungeon of Jeju Island. Stepping inside, thick, ominous fog choked the air. Archers and elite mages were rendered completely useless here. Their attacks could never pierce through the heavy mist to find the terrifying bone panthers lurking in the shadows. These demonic beasts synchronized their very essence with the fog. Normal physical strikes passed right through them like empty air. The only way to scratch them was to unleash massive area of effect devastation, or purge them with the holy light of a high-ranking priest. To make matters infinitely worse, their offensive power was springing from the void to deliver fatal strikes. We almost got our entire squad wiped out multiple times, the local hunters warned. Unfazed, our protagonist's party marched deeper. They soon stepped into the grand. Normally, this sprawling area was considered a designated safe zone. Lesser monsters would never dare set foot here. But today, the rules of the system had completely shattered. Without warning, in a flash of lightning-fast reflexes, the veteran hunter parried. With one devastating counterattack, he obliterated the beast. The party immediately unleashed a storm of magic to eradicate the remaining ambushers. Yet, our overpowered this dungeon's aura was twisted and completely abnormal. The only way to uncover the truth was to dive straight into the abyss. One grueling hour later, they reached the dungeon's darkest depths. Trusting his instincts, our hero gave a sudden order. His enchanted dagger straight into the dense fog with all his might. The guildmaster didn't hesitate for a single second. Swoosh! A blood-curdling roar suddenly violently shook the cavern walls. The blade had pierced something massive hidden in the shadows. A colossal, grotesque skeleton monstrosity erupted from the mist. Weapons clashed as the elite team fought back with perfect synchronization. Guildmaster Kim's leadership proved to be incredibly reliable in the heat of battle. Seeing their solid defense, leaving the vanguard behind, he pushed deeper into the abyss. Suddenly, his eyes locked onto a bizarre spatial crack floating in midair. He reached out, but his hand phased right through it like a digital glitch. Even the seasoned Guildmaster Kim was completely blind. It was a dimensional anomaly that only his transcendent eyes could perceive. That bastard war god is plotting something sinister again, he muttered. With the raid concluded, The overpowered sibling duo finally left Jeju Island. His mind was still entirely consumed by the mystery of that dimensional rift. But his chaotic little sister suddenly shattered his train of thought. "You are totally secretly dating the Vice Guild Master, aren't you?" she teased loudly. The sudden accusation almost made our stoic hero. He completely choked on his own spit in pure shock. "She would be the absolute perfect sister-in-law," his sister continued rambling. "She is gorgeous, incredibly rich," and shortly after, he arrived at the stunning Vice Guild Master's office. She was visibly exhausted, drowning in endless paperwork for the guild merger. Suddenly, her legs gave out from sheer fatigue. Swoosh! Time seemed to freeze as their eyes locked in absolute silence. A heavy, heart-racing tension filled the room. Are we getting a sweet romance chapter finally? Snapping back to reality, Jihei quickly changed the subject to an impossible dungeon, but our hyper-observant dead center on a nasty, bleeding wound on her delicate hand. "A completely unranked dungeon spawned recently," she explained softly. "The system couldn't calculate its threat level, so I scouted it alone." She tried to brush off even when I activated my ultimate shadow dance technique. I barely managed to slaughter a single monster. Her voice trembled with rare, genuine fear. "I have never seen colossal-type monsters have started spawning once again. The very laws of the system were warping into absolute chaos. A dark storm was clearly brewing on the horizon." Seeing her distress, Shin Hyun made this catastrophic threat in her place. Stepping through the gate, a literal hellscape of boiling lava greeted him. The terrifying heat threatened to melt flesh from bone. Instantly, a monstrous beast of molten rock lunged at his throat. Perfect. But this beast was no ordinary mob. For any normal hunter, this volcanic terrain was a complete death sentence. Close combat was physical suicide against a body made of magma. Meanwhile, standard long-range magical bombardments would simply evaporate against its blazing armor. The title of Impossible Dungeon was absolutely well-deserved. To make things infinitely worse, the demon possessed god-tier regeneration. Every time his aura blade cleaved its rocky body into pieces, the molten rocks aggressively fused right back together. He unleashed a barrage of devastating strikes, but the beast refused to die. Our battle-hardened veteran quickly analyzed the combat data. I am overlooking a crucial mechanic. His target was the monster's deeply hidden mana core. The blinding light of the lava had perfectly camouflaged its fatal weak point. Crack! His legendary sword violently shattered the glowing crystal into stardust. Ding! He instantly leveled up 3 times from a single kill. Now this was the kind of overpowered leveling hack that felt incredible. The very next day, he dragged Yunseo into this blazing inferno for a power leveling session. His flawless strategy was simple. He would the massive lava golems into helpless chunks. All his sister had to do was snipe the exposed cores with her enchanted arrows. Drawing her bowstring to its absolute limit, she unleashed a blinding shot. Boom! The dungeon violently trembled as the ding, ding, ding. A crazy 5-level jump instantly skyrocketed her to level 43. For the next few days, the sibling duo turned the deadly dungeon into their personal experience farm. They ruthlessly hunted down 13 catastrophic magma beasts. Breaking past her limits, overwhelmed with absolute joy, she tackled her brother into a massive hug. Crossing the level 50 threshold meant she was officially recognized as a high-ranking elite hunter. "My salary is going to skyrocket. Unlimited shopping spree," she squealed in delight. "You are officially the most legendary, overpowered big brother in the entire universe." Funny how just yesterday she was mercilessly insulting his dating life. Meanwhile, our fake weak protagonist had been secretly absorbing massive experience. His own stats had absurdly straight to a monstrous level 65. This wasn't just growth, it was a literal system cheat code. As a final reward, he casually tossed his sister an ultra-rare skill crystal. It was the mythical drop from the terrifying bone, a luxurious penthouse in the heart of Seoul. But our protagonist firmly commanded his sister to absorb the power instead. Stepping into the realm of high-ranking hunters meant walking a path soaked in blood. She would soon face nightmare-tier raids. And surviving required absolute, terrifying strength. But amidst their heartwarming moment, a filthy rat was secretly spying from the shadows. Sadly for the assassin, escaping an overpowered swordmaster was mathematically impossible. Because in the stalker tried to escape, but our main character was lightning fast. He grabbed the rat by the throat. "You have been tailing me since yesterday. You have quite the nerve." Then, he used his absolute command. The truth spilled from the terrified spy. He belonged to the Chinese Hunter Association. The recent abnormal dungeon signs were just the beginning. A catastrophic storm was truly approaching. Time was running out. He had to power level his little sister immediately. She needed absolute strength to protect herself against the dark forces targeting them. Using the newly acquired intel, he marched straight into the enemy's lair, the Heavenly Creation Guild. He kicked their massive doors into splinters. A terrifying aura exploded from his body, forcing the receptionist to choke on her own breath. She desperately slammed the panic button. Instantly, a swarm of elite guards surrounded him. "You dare break in here?" they sneered. "Next year. Today will be your death anniversary." Our hero just smirked. "You all call yourselves martial artists, but you rely on magic, right?" The guard captain charged forward. In a flash, our hero struck his pressure points. All of his meridians were sealed instantly. Then, he asked a simple question. "Can your martial arts show a system window? Whoever answers fast gets a painless end. Whoever acts stubborn goes straight to the coffin." Terrified by his overwhelming presence, they quickly spilled everything. They revealed that their third in command was currently in the building. However, this boss had not even sensed our hero's monstrous energy. He stared blankly at his empty office, utterly confused. Seeing his elite men lying unconscious on the floor, he froze. Before he could process the shock, a devastating blow struck him. The fancy suit-wearing boss was tossed straight into the swimming pool. He was so paralyzed by fear, he did not even dare to breathe loudly. Only a handful of people in China can use teleportation. It is a supreme-level technique. His mind raced in absolute panic. If he can do this, my men are already dead. Based on the overwhelming energy I feel, he is an absolute monster. He must be on the same level as Master Yang. No, perhaps even higher. He knew he had to warn the Chinese guild, even if it cost his life. The boss finally unleashed his true limits. He charged forward like a mad beast, but his fierce blade strikes they did not even leave a single scratch. Your attacks feel like burning mosquito bites. And yet you bark so loudly? Our hero mocked. He was too lazy to even draw his sword for this trash. Countless explosive elemental spheres materialized in the air. The boss desperately blocked the overwhelming barrage. He thought he found an opening and lunged, but his blade violently halted in midair, blocking his path. Was a supreme sword art, a realm of absolute power he could never hope to touch. Death was his only remaining destiny. And the best part? A reporter from the Dawn Guild recorded this entire brutal clash. This footage would serve as their ultimate declaration of war. The news instantly set the internet on fire, but our overpoweringly strong hero decided to play the fake weak trope. He checked himself into the intensive care unit to hide his true monster-like stats. Meanwhile, the fools who challenged him had already been sent to the afterlife. 1 week later, the grand press conference began. It was time for his Oscar-worthy acting. He showed up wrapped in heavy bandages from head to toe, and yet his legendary aura still leaked out. People whispered in absolute awe. He must have barely survived a horrific bloodbath. Who on earth could push him to such a devastating state? "I sincerely thank everyone for taking the time to come," he spoke softly. "And I thank the Dawn Guild for setting this up. I know the world has many burning questions. Questions about the unfortunate accident that took place last week. He spun a dramatic tale of survival. 20 massive, terrifying men tried to jump me, he lied smoothly. But the reality was, he had already sent them all to the grave. He publicly mocked their pathetic strength. He used the press conference to send a direct message to the Chinese mastermind. Stop sending weak little bugs. If you want a real war, come face me yourself. Meanwhile, the supreme leader of heavenly creation was burning with blazing rage. He just found out his elite strike team had been completely wiped out. In his fury, he even executed the messenger. Right on the spot, he vowed to travel to South Korea and crush our hero personally. A few days later, our hero was rudely awakened. Giant men in dark suits demanded an audience. They claimed their master wanted to see him. "Are you bugs looking for death?" he glared. But when he arrived, the mysterious master was none other than South Korean President Park Young-soo. The president came to settle the Heavenly Creation Guild situation. I will skip the pleasantries and get straight to the point. I want all the details about the Chinese hunters ambushing you. The leader of the Dawn Guild had leaked some intel to the president. If the friction between foreign and domestic hunters is not resolved smoothly, the peace we have fought so hard to maintain will shatter. But our hero directly cut the president off. "I think you are deeply misunderstanding something. My personal war with heavenly creation is exactly like the Chinese government working with them. It is the same as the South Korean government backing the Dawn Guild. You know, Dawn and Twilight once fought a bloody war for survival. Right? Well, I am absolutely certain of one thing. The mastermind backing Twilight's leader, Park Tae-hoon, was none other than heavenly creation. I am guessing you already have the confession recording from their spy. And what about those secret documents in Park Tae-hoon's safe? If Twilight had successfully overthrown Dawn in that survival war, this nation would have been doomed. Our natural resources and territories would have been completely stolen by another country. This international conflict you are so worried about, it has already begun. If you want to play blind, be my guest. I will handle this entire war myself. So I suggest you stay out of my way." Sweating bullets, the president immediately folded. He promised full government backing, as long as our hero delivered a massive victory. Shortly after, a mysterious figure requested a secret meeting. His name was Kang Chang-sik, a hunter from North Korea. He had registered as a Chinese hunter out of pure survival. North Korea is currently renting all of its dungeons to China. On the surface, it looks like a friendly partnership. But this is nothing more than a project to bleed our natural resources dry. They claim it is for national prosperity, but the reality is far darker. We have become nothing more than an unofficial colony of China. The endless starvation and absolute misery of my people have not changed at all. I watched my family and friends die by their cruel hands. So, I made a life-changing vow. I decided to enter China, awaken my true strength, and gather vital intel, all to change the tragic fate of my homeland. He was secretly leading a massive revolution against China. From within North Korea. It might be late, but I'm building a new hunter system. That was why he came seeking our incredibly overpowered hero's help. He offered to open North Korean dungeons to South Korea. They could use them for tourism or industrial exchange. If we can boost South Korea's influence up north, and sever China's greedy grasp, we can pave a new path to rebuild our government. Our hero's mind clicked. So that was why Park Tae-hoon was handing North Korean dungeons to heavenly creation. The Chinese government planned to control North Korea. Meanwhile, heavenly creation controlled the Chinese government from the shadows. The truth was finally exposed. Our hero instantly decided to invade North Korea. It is obviously a deadly trap, but you cannot catch a tiger without entering its cave. Sometime later, he successfully infiltrated North Korean territory. Thanks to his intense power leveling, his little sister had already reached level 54. Meanwhile, his own level skyrocketed to 67. To top it off, she had finally achieved a legendary breakthrough in her martial art, level 30. 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕 had officially broken through her limits. She was now an elite martial artist, capable of manifesting raw aura and unleashing devastating sword energy. The very next day, the expedition commenced. Our main character led a squad of near-elite hunters straight into North Korean territory. "Pleasure to meet you all," he announced smoothly. "I am the guide for this mission." Every hunter standing before him was a rising star, sitting comfortably past level 40. Yet, the coveted captain's badge was handed straight to 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕. Why? Because her battlefield instincts were completely unmatched. But when her status window flashed open, the entire squad gasped in pure, unadulterated shock. Level 54. She completely eclipsed their so-called elite status. No one dared to utter a single word of protest. Just a few short months ago, she was nothing but an average squad leader. How did she violently jump over 20 levels in the blink of an eye? The answer was simple. She had an unfathomably overpowered older brother hard carrying her through the abyss. For this raid, the little sister would command the vanguard. While the moment they breached the dungeon gates, high-tier demonic frogs lunged from the shadows. For our unstoppable sibling duo, they were mere target practice. But the rest of the elite squad, they were fighting for their absolute lives. If Captain 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕 had not unleashed her brilliant sword arts to save them, they would have been monster fodder without a doubt. One arrogant hunter snapped, whining that he had hit his absolute physical limit. That was when our hero stepped from the shadows. "You have the energy to complain, but where was that loudmouth when the monsters were tearing you apart?" His voice dripped with absolute authority. "Do you want to know the secret behind 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕's strength, even though she started at your level? It is because she bleeds for her power. No whining, no limits." Without warning, he casually unleashed a technique. A devastating force instantly vaporized every surrounding monster in a 100-meter radius. The complaining hunters fell to their knees in sheer awe. From that second on, their absolute loyalty was forged in stone. Months of relentless slaughter across the northern territories flew by. Now, they stood before the legendary Mount Kumgang, an impossible tier dungeon. Inside, the Heavenly Creation Guild lurked in the shadows, laying a fatal trap for. But these foolish mortals had no idea. They were not the hunters today. They were the prey. The interior was a frozen hellscape. The bone-chilling frost was so absolute, even a supreme martial artist like 𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕 shivered uncontrollably. But our overpowered main character? He did not even blink. As he casually led them through the blizzard, a colossal avian beast descended. This frozen terror was the absolute alpha. Thousands of deadly ice spears rained down from the heavens. But before they could pierce the squad, our hero summoned a blazing barrier, casually blocking the apocalyptic strike. Just one of those shattered ice shards could instantly execute an average hunter. Upon impact, they erupted into unextinguishable, freezing flames that devoured life force in an instant. Getting close was practically. The monster ruled the skies, making melee combat utterly impossible. It maintained its altitude, endlessly bombarding them with absolute zero magic, preparing for a devastating carpet-bombing maneuver. He signaled his sister to shoot it down, but her aura-infused arrow shattered uselessly against the absolute frost. Left with no other choice, our hero unleashed a roaring wave of hellfire to melt the apocalyptic ice storm. He sighed internally. He could easily erase this frozen, overgrown chicken from existence, but playing the weak support meant hiding his divine, world-breaking strength in front of this massive audience. He commanded the squad to scale the frozen cliffs to gain a tactical advantage, but suddenly, a sinister shadow loomed above. An apocalyptic avalanche came crashing down with terrifying force. It was the absolute scum of the Heavenly Creation Guild. The leader himself had sprung the ultimate trap. With an earth-shattering boom, but suddenly, The earth trembled. A heaven-defying explosion obliterated the snow. Our hero walked out of the blazing inferno like a literal god of destruction. The ambushers the white-haired guildmaster yelled for his men to attack. He had brought his entire army, over 100 high-ranking elites, all ready to slaughter one single man. "Do you have any idea," the guildmaster sneered, "why the Kumgang dungeon is deemed impossible? The beasts residing here are not just monsters, they are walking natural disasters." A swarm of demonic snowbirds swarmed our hero. With a single casual strike, he shredded them, but the beasts regenerated instantly. Time for playing the weak support was finally over. He was the supreme sword emperor. These overgrown pigeons were a massive insult to his blade. He drew his weapon. One single, solitary slash. The heavens split. The invincible flock was completely erased from existence. With a mere flick of his finger, the panicked guildmaster launched his ultimate combo attack. It did absolutely zero damage. The power gap was wider than the ocean. In sheer desperation, he secretly ordered an assassin to target 𝑺𝒕𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒔𝒕. Meanwhile, our hero was busy casually erasing an entire elite squad. The Iron Vanguard unleashed a storm of arrows, but they bounced off his. Even the ultimate secret arts of high-rank martial artists could not leave a single scratch on his absolute defense. Is he even human? He is a walking disaster. An enemy female hunter collapsed to her knees. She was completely paralyzed by his overwhelming, godlike aura. Her will to fight had been entirely and utterly shattered. He mercilessly reduced the remaining traitors to mere ash. 1 month later, the surviving squad returned from hell. Thanks to his absolute carry, every single tag-along had broken past level 50. The association planned to throw him a massive victory parade, but our overpowered hero had already vanished to go on a sweet romantic date. Meanwhile, the true identity of the heavenly war god remains a dark mystery waiting to be unraveled. That wraps up part 1.